What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are in the van outside St. Vitus, and we are here with Ray of Lullwater. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
No problem, man. Thanks for coming.
Of course. It's so awesome to have you here. So your newest record is Voodoo. Do you just want to give like a rundown on how the making of this record was, the recording, mixing, all that fun stuff?
Sure. We knew it was album time, so we all got together and for pre-production, we took a month in the band house basement, and just every day we got together for a couple hours and worked on songs. Our friend Jacob, who's producing or co-producing with Justin Davis as well, he wanted to do the album in New Orleans, so we flew out there and then did another week of like pre-production. We took all the songs and redid them again, and then we just recorded it. And I don't really know. It was just a really crazy time for all of us in our lives. So a lot of that kind of seeped into the album recording.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were all going through rough patches, so we just put it all into the music, and as far as the process went, just had a lot of fun, did a lot of experimentation with our sound, but tried to, remain true to what we do.
Awesome. You kind of led me into the next question because, you mentioned that what you guys were going through at this time was kind of like represented on the record. Was it a preconceived idea on how you wanted it to sound, or was there a lot of improvising involved?
We never really think about how we want our sound to come out. We just go in and write songs. So usually with the way that songs work in this band is someone will come up with a little idea that sounds catchy, and someone else will say, hey, that's pretty good. And we'll just throw it around between ourselves until something comes out. And it all just sort of sounds similar to us, luckily. And a funny fact, I think, is everything so far since I've joined Lullwater, basically, that we've written together, like put more time into expanding upon, has been a song. So there's a lot of bands that will go and are, they're good and studious and write like 50 songs for their album and then cut it down, and we're like the opposite, and we just
quality over quantity,
make just as much as we need to, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's been albums out that have like like they'll have like 5 songs, but each song's like 20 minutes, so like it works. But I feel like for you guys, like what I've noticed about, especially with Voodoo, is that like I feel like people who like one song could appreciate the other songs. As you like are in the making of an album, does the making of each song maybe get progressively easier because you kind of like develop a mode as you move along, or a momentum?
Actually, for us, I think each song is sort of its own unique, like world, I guess, if you will, or just it all comes from its own place. So they don't really inform each other. And if we had anything that sounded too similar, I guess I would personally start worrying as far as like, oh, can we play this song live? And we have some of that already between our albums. Like some of the songs are in similar modes, and I'm worried to play them next to each other. So,
really?
So we have to spread them out in the set sometimes. But no, each song just comes from its own place, and we just work on them each until they're kind of ready. And we just take them in and hope they come out properly.
Yeah. How do you know when a song is done?
I don't know. It's easier with Lullwater because it's 4 dudes working together, so we just kind of all throw stuff at it until no one else feels like we need to add anything else, I guess. But then a lot of that too comes in the studio with our producers, and they'll help us add textures or maybe make the song a little more unique than it would be if it's just what we had come up with. Like on the album, some of our songs, and it kind of reflected where we were too. Some of our songs have horns and we have strings, and it's just a little bit more experimental. Yeah. And trying to make each song live in its own world.
Are you ever worried though? Sometimes you want each song to live in its own world, but you also don't want to be like directionless at the same time,
right? Yeah, I think that everything sort of just naturally sounds like us. Like we can't help what Lullwater sounds like. We never really gave it much thought, but what we write just comes out this way. And luckily, John's voice also ties everything together, and it's like very consistent.
There you go. And one thing I was always curious about is because especially like within your sound, like I feel like, everything is so crisp, clear. Like, if you slightly botch a note in the guitar solo, you're going to hear it. If you slightly go off time for 1 second, there's no saving yourself. So I'd imagine that what people are hearing live is also what they're going to get on the record, right?
Definitely. And actually, I might go even a little further to say that we really struggle to capture our live energy on records. So you might even get a little more if you come out to see the live show. Although there's more like production on the album, but it's there's a feeling with the live show that it's hard to recreate.
Yeah. And you also mentioned, kind of going back to the personal element of Voodoo, because like you mentioned that they represent times in your life. If you spend, so you're obviously capturing a moment with your song. So if you spend like, 2 days on a song or a week or sometimes a month, does that sometimes hinder capturing that moment? Or
I guess for me, personally, well, with our songs, John does all the lyrics, so I think a lot of the moment capturing kind of falls to him as far as the content. But with me, I'll write some of the riffs, and they just kind of come out, and they make me feel a certain way, and they usually just kind of stay that way. So I don't feel like that putting a lot of time into is a hindrance, because I guess I don't really write about how I feel like immediately in the moment. I'm not a super reactionary person. It's usually about something that's been going on for a while, or just like if I've been in like a rut or something, something. If something just happens in one day, I'm just like, oh, it's unfortunate. Like, I had a bad day, but that doesn't really get me too down.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah. And being a bassist, because I feel like that's a very important instrument. Despite all the bass player jokes we've heard in rock.
I know, I love the bass player jokes, though.
Yeah.
Like, I make them as well.
Yeah, well, just also remember you had Peter Steele and Lemmy as bassists, so...
Yeah, no, it's, everyone, as much as the jokes they make, it's because they love us, they need us.
There you go. Well, it also, I feel like it has much of an emphasis on rhythm and melody at the same time, so for your approach to bass playing, do you follow, the rhythm of the drums first, or do you have to, have guitar melody written down so you know what to play, or does the band sometimes write over stuff that you lay down?
Well, I guess what I like to do as a bass player is, my first thing is I never want to be one of those bass players who just plays the root note over and over, like the dumb bass line. I want to have something interesting going on, but I also want to serve the song. So I kind of view my role as just the glue that holds the drums and the guitars together. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that means I need to be a little more simple with the parts I'm playing, just so that everything feels more grounded and stable.
Yeah.
So you have to serve the whole more than the self.
Sometimes the simplest way is the best, right?
Yeah.
You overthink stuff too much.
No, totally. And that's something, I feel like it's a lesson that I still struggle with, but it's really hard to be simple musically more than it is to be complicated, I think.
Absolutely. You can write a solo 20 minutes long, as long as you just keep moving your fingers,
Mm-hmm.
but to make something quick and really capture an energy, I think is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's why I have so much respect for hardcore bands that write 50-second songs. Yeah. Now, kind of going back to the live presence, you mentioned your method of execution and the energy that you portray, and there's also I feel like an art to interacting with the audience. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, would you say that playing live is a completely separate art from being able to write music?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's just it's a performance. I mean, you have to be a good musician, but you also have to be more than that, because no one. I mean, I'm not no one, but most people don't want to go and just see a bunch of dudes go and stand there and be like, oh, I'm playing my instrument, I'm not moving, unless you're watching progressive metal.
Yeah.
But even then, the singer moves. There's something going on. So you just have to. You got to give people a reason to want to come see the show, and as opposed to just stay at home and listen to the album.
Yeah, of course. I feel like, if you get exactly what you get on the album, it's why not just listen to the album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is being a bass player, is there a specific weapon of choice that you always use for your instrument? Are you
always?
What's your weapon of
yes.
choice?
So first of all, I love Dingwall basses. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I've actually never heard of them.
You'll see mine tonight, but they're a Canadian company, and they make the best basses ever. They just they're crazy fan fret, beastly instruments with super pure low notes. Everything just sounds better. You'll see how crazy it is when you see it in person. It's a little different. And then as far as my amps, I've just got a new setup for this tour, and I'm super excited about it. I got the Dark Glass Microtubes V2 900 head. So it's a super small solid-state bass amp head, and I put it on a pedal board with a few other pedals, and everything just lives in this one pedal board. So I downsized from a rig that was up to my waist and just wide and heavy, 100 pounds or something, to this thing. It's under 50 pounds. I could fly with it, and it just sounds great. And
are you playing a 4-string or 5-string?
5-string.
5-string.
Yeah.
Is there a huge advantage in having that extra low B in the? I
don't see how. I mean, more is always better, right? Like, I can see, I guess, if you're a really serious slap player and you just always played 4 strings, it's easy to not hit that. Like, you might hit the low string if you weren't used to it.
Yeah.
But as far as for this kind of music, I just think it's just so nice to have that extra range and the options. And from my perspective, it's like if I don't want it, I can just not play it. But if I had a 4 string and I wanted it, then I wouldn't be able to play it.
I guess it's better to have it when you don't need it than need it when you don't have
Exactly. And I started playing 5 strings like 1 year into my bass playing. So I've been playing I played 4 string for a year, and I played 5 string for like 15 years now, 14, 15 years. So it feels like it took me a while even to learn how to play 4 string without the low string there, because I used to rest my thumb on that low string exclusively, and it felt like everything was floating in a different area. So
I'd imagine if you go back to a 4 string, it's going to feel like you're playing a completely separate instrument.
Yeah, totally. It's just the neck is so small, but then I do feel like I can go really fast on those. It's kind of cool.
You got to upgrade to a 6 string bass now.
I would definitely be into that, and I just I haven't had a real reason to, and I still don't, but it would be fun.
Yeah.
And I want a fretless bass also. That would be fun.
Yeah, and then you could start writing technical death metal.
Yes. Yeah, I actually I play in a progressive metal band already.
Oh, really?
Enochian. That's just like the shorthand.
That sounds
on that
very
one.
prog metal.
Yeah, from Jersey City.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, maybe we'll get some fretless and go wild with that.
There you go. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with Lullwater that you would like to promote in terms of tours or shows or new music?
Man, our tour's almost over. But I guess actually our single Dark Divided has been having a lot of success on radio recently. So anyone who's listening to this, call in your local rock radio station and ask for Dark Divided, and that would be super cool.
Awesome.
And we have an acoustic album that this isn't something to really push, but it's just something that we have coming up down the pipeline. We have it recorded, we just don't have a release date yet.
Okay.
Just want to let people know that that's there, and we're working on booking tours for the next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ray.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
It was fun.
Everybody, we are here with Ray of Lullwater. Pick up Voodoo if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.